والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق أجمعين محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We are in the subject of fiqh, and we have reached to the subject of Adhan and Iqamah and related issues to this. Issue 925. It is mustahab for men and women to say Adhan and Iqamah before offering daily obligatory prayers. But for other mustahab or obligatory prayers, they are not prescribed. But before prayers of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, it is mustahab to say As-Salah 3 times. As-Salah, 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 provided that the prayers are going to be offered in congregation. Adhan and Iqamah is recommended, not wajib, but it is recommended, and especially Iqamah is recommended more, and well, it is better to always say Adhan and Iqamah, or at least to say Iqamah for the prayer. But it is prescribed for the daily prayers. If there is Salatul Ayat, for example, though it is wajib, so there is no Adhan and Iqamah, or Salatul Mayyit, there is no Adhan and Iqamah for Salatul Mayyit, for prayer for the deceased people. At time of Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha, the prayer of Eid, there is no Adhan and Iqamah there, but there is a call, As-Salah, As-Salah, 3 times. Imam will call As-Salah, then he stand for the prayer. Naturally, if they are praying in congregation, not somebody praying at home alone, then even that is not necessary. Issue 926, it is recommended that Adhan be pronounced in the right ear of the child and Iqamah in its left ear on the day it is born or before the umbilical cord is cast off. One of the recommended things, if there is a newborn baby, the first thing they do for him is to recite Adhan on his right ear and then Iqamah on his left ear. So he will remember Allah from the first day or maybe the first hour that he came to this world. Issue 927. Adhan consists of the following 18 sentences. Allahu Akbar 4 times, and Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah 2 times, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah 2 times, Hayya ala salah 2 times, Hayya ala al-falah 2 times, Hayya ala khayr al-amal 2 times, Allahu Akbar 2 times, and La ilaha illallah 2 times. So this is the way of Adhan, but Iqamah have little difference. He said as regard to Iqamah, it consists of 17 sentences. In Iqamah, Allahu Akbar is reduced in the beginning to twice rather than 4 times. The first Allahu Akbar 4 times in Adhan and 2 times in Iqamah. And at the end, La ilaha illallah, instead of being 2 times in Adhan, will be 1 time in Iqamah. And after Hayya ala khayr al-amal, in Iqamah they said Qad qamat as-salah. In the prayers has certainly been established. Must be added 2 times. So that is the difference. Allahu Akbar, the first one will be 2 times in Iqamah, and La ilaha illallah at the end will be 1 time instead of 2 times in Iqamah. And after Hayya ala khayr al-amal, we say Qad qamat as-salah, Qad qamat as-salah 2 times. That is not in Adhan, but it is in Iqamah. Issue 928 said, Ashhadu anna Amir al-Mu'mineen Aliyan Waliyullah, which means I testify that the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali alayhi salam, is the vicegerent of Allah, is not a part of either Adhan or Iqamah, but it is preferable that it is pronounced after Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah with the niyyat of qurbat. You see, it is very clearly mentioned in books of ulama They said, Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah is not part of Adhan, but it is part of Iman. Our Iman will be completed with that. And some ulama said it is recommended or has to be mentioned with the intention of qurbatan ila Allah, for sake of Allah, because there are ahadith from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying the general meaning that ما جعلت النبوة لي إلا والولاية لعلي. The prophethood was not made for me except that the wilaya, the authority or the imamate was made for Ali alayhi salam. So whenever we mention the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we have to mention Imam Ali alayhi salam. Also, there is a hadith mentioned even in our Sunni brothers in their books mentioned that after Ghadir Khum, Salman and Abu Dhar, they recited Adhan and said after Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, they said Ashhadu anna Aliyan Amir al-Mu'minin, because that was the first time name of Amir al-Mu'minin comes in Adhan. So the Muslims were astonished and they hurried to the Prophet that look what Salman is saying. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, he was angry with the people and he said, didn't you hear what I have said in Ghadir Khum? I have delivered such a long sermon for you to understand. You did not understand what I have said. I have made Ali, man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. Whoever I am his authority, then this Ali is his authority, his master, his guardian. So have you not understood what I said? You have not realized. So actually Salman and Abu Dhar, they realize what the Prophet says, and whenever name of the Holy Prophet comes, they add name of Imam Ali alayhi salam and said, Ashhadu anna Aliyan Amir al-Mu'minin. Well, in many places is one mentioned that whenever you say Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, say Ashhadu anna Aliyan Amir al-Mu'minin. So that is why in Adhan also it is one of the places where we mention Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we mention Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah or Ashhadu anna Aliyan Amir al-Mu'minin here. Issue 929, there should not be an unusual interval between the sentences of Adhan or Iqamah. And if an unusual gap is allowed between them, the Adhan or Iqamah will have to be repeated. If somebody start Allahu Akbar, and then a friend has come or a telephone has come, and then he is replying the telephone, and after a gap of some time he come back, then the Adhan is null. He should start it again from the beginning. Not to say that, okay, half is already said, I will continue another half, because that should be continuously mentioned. Issue 930, if Adhan and Iqamah are recited in a melodious tone, rendering it musical, that is like the way singers sing to entertain the people, it is haram. If it does not become musical, it is makruh. To have a musical tone, naturally the tone of song, any tone, even in reciting Quran by singing like the musicians, is haram. Adhan and Iqamah with a tone of singers is haram, because that singing all is haram, whatever we recite. But if it is not a tone of musicians, but a still special tone, you said that is makruh. May not be haram, but it should be with the normal tone. Issue 931. Whenever a person offers two prayers together, one after the other, he will not say Adhan for the second prayers if he has said it for the first, irrespective of whether it was better in that case to pray together or not. Like on the day of Arafah, which is the day 9th of the Hajj, for Dhuhr and Asr prayers, or the night of Eid al-Adha for Maghrib and Isha at Mash'ar. But the adhan does not become necessary only if there is no prolonged gap between the two prayers. A small time lapse between two prayers caused by du'as or nafile will not be taken as a prolonged gap. And if one give adhan as per obligatory precaution, one should not make the niyat of it being prescribed by Sharia, especially in the last two cases of Arafah and Mash'ar. You see, adhan is to be said once, and whatever prayers come, it will be only each prayer with iqamah, not with adhan, because only one adhan. So if someone has to pray Dhuhr and Asr, he say adhan first, and then iqamah for Dhuhr, and after, let us say, little dhikr after the prayer, like Tasbih al-Zahra, Salamullah alayha, or some du'as, or even you pray nafila, he stand again for Asr. If the time did not lapse too much, I mean, if he spent half an hour or 1 hour, then the time, the gap is too much, it's better to say adhan again. But if it is a small time, which is usual, a time of dhikr and nafila, and he stand for Asr, for example, right away, then he doesn't need to have adhan again, only iqamah. But what he mentioned in Arafat, the people pray Dhuhr and Asr at area of Arafat. Those who have gone for Hajj, they know about it. There they combine Dhuhr and Asr together. So he said whether it is in a state where it is combined, or in usual Dhuhr and Asr that you can separate them, but still if you want to pray them together, there will be one adhan. Similar case if somebody is reciting prayers of qadha. For example, I have 100 days of morning prayer qadha, and I need to pray, let us say, 20 of them at a time. So first I start one adhan, then iqamah, and I pray morning prayer, I finish it, I stand, also iqamah, then second morning prayer, third, fourth, I do qadha of it. So if there are many prayers together, only one adhan is sufficient, the rest will be iqamah. Issue 932, if adhan and iqamah has been pronounced for congregational prayers, a person joining that congregation should not pronounce adhan and iqamah for his own prayers, because he is praying in congregation and already they recited adhan and iqamah for congregation, so he doesn't need to recite adhan or iqamah for himself. Issue 933, if a person entering a mosque finds that congregational prayers are over, he may not give adhan or iqamah for his own prayers as long as the lines have not broken up and the people have not dispersed. This means it is not an emphasized mustahab act for him. If he intends to give adhan or iqamah anyway, then it should be with very low voices. If he is joining another prayers with congregation, he should not give adhan or iqamah. You see, it happens when enter the mosque, already congregational prayer has finished, but still the people are sitting doing ta'qib, well, some dhikr or recitation. Here he does not need to for adhan and iqamah, does not need, because it is not mustahab now for him. Already said, already jama'at there, and though he joined lately, the jama'at has finished, but he doesn't need that. If he come and he joined the jama'at, naturally, but he came late, at the last rak'at of Asr prayer or last rak'at of Isha prayer, for example, still he doesn't need adhan and iqamah, because already mentioned by the Imam or by the jama'at, Issue 934. At a place where congregational prayers have just ended and the lines have not yet broken up, if a person wants to begin his prayers individually or with another congregation, he is exempted from pronouncing Adhan and Iqamah on 6 conditions. First, if prayers are offered in a mosque, if it is not offered in a mosque, the exemption from pronouncing Adhan and Iqamah is not established. So here, again, elaborating the previous issue, that the condition, there is no need for Adhan and Iqamah if you enter when congregation prayer said, that is if it is in the mosque. But in the Western countries, which usually it is in Islamic centers or prayer halls, then that law is not applicable. So you put first, if prayers are offered in a mosque. Second, if Adhan and Iqamah has already been recited for the preceding prayers, because sometimes the people do not recite Adhan, they recite Iqamah only. So he said if Adhan and Iqamah were recited. If the congregational prayers offered is not void, well, sometimes Imam who lead the prayer is not adil and the congregational prayer is void. So if that is the case, then one for himself is better to have Adhan and Iqamah. 4, when the prayers of the person concerned and the congregational prayers are offered at one and the same place. If the congregational prayers are offered within the mosque and he wants to offer prayers on its roof, it is mustahab that he should pronounce Adhan and Iqamah. So if they are both inside the mosque together, well, this rule applies. But if it is on the roof of the mosque, is outside that vicinity, then he may recite Adhan and Iqamah for himself. 5, when the congregational prayers have been offered within prescribed time, his own prayers which he wishes to offer may not necessarily be within time. The time of Adha, if Imam of the mosque is not praying Qadha of the prayer, sometimes in the mosque Imam want to encourage people. He said, today we are going to do Qadha of 2 days or 5 days, for example. And we do it in Jama'at, so the people come and pray Jama'at, and it will be Qadha of the previous days. So he said, if that is the case, then he has to recite Adhan and Iqamah as recommended, because that congregation prayer is not for the Adha, for the prescribed time of the same day. That is, well, an exception, 6, when both his prayers and the congregation prayers are for common time. For example, both of them should be offering Dhuhr prayers or Asr prayers. The same is applicable if the prayer, if he prays Dhuhr while the congregation prayer prays Asr, or vice versa. But if he's praying Maghrib in its prime time with the congregation which is offering Asr at its lapse time, Adhan and Iqamah will not be exempted. You see, if it lapses for any reason, it is Qadha for any reason, and then beginning of Maghrib, now they want to do Qadha of Asr prayer because it is already late. So what they do is Qadha, and what I am doing is Ada of Maghrib. So he said Adhan and Iqamah is not to be exempted here. Anyhow, it is mustahab, as I said, but there are a lot of details even in this mustahab. Issue 935, if a person doubts about the third condition out of the 6 conditions mentioned above, that is, if he doubts whether or not the congregational prayers are void, he is exempted from pronouncing Adhan and Iqamah. But if he doubts about any one of the remaining conditions, it is better that he should pronounce Adhan and Iqamah with the niyat of Raja, hope that he may be doing a worthy deed. You see, if he knows that Imam of the mosque is not adil, then he is sure the congregation is void. But if he doesn't know, but there is only doubt, then Adhan and Iqamah is exempted. But he mentioned in case other condition that I don't know, they offer a prayer of the time or they do qada, for example. Did they do Adhan and Iqamah or not? He doesn't know. Then that is exempted. But what he means Raja, say Raja al-Matlubiyya, and then he say Adhan, if Allah knows that Adhan is to be recited, I am doing it. If not, then it is not, He cannot say it is mustahab, he cannot say it is not mustahab, because he doesn't know. So he say Raja al-Matlubiyya, with the hope that it is worthy in the view of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a word, Raja al-Matlubiyya, he put it, which is Arabic. Raja means hoping that it is worthy in the view of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it may be worthy, may not, I don't know. So I don't have intention, it is mustahab, because it may not be mustahab. So I put Raja, with the hope that it might be mustahab, because of other conditions are not fulfilled. That is meaning of Raja al-Matlubiyya. Issue 936, it is mustahab that when a person hears Adhan, he follows by uttering together in a low voice whatever he hears. I mean, when the muadhin said Allahu Akbar, it is mustahab that person himself with the low voice he say also Allahu Akbar. So second time Allahu Akbar, he said also Allahu Akbar till 4 times. Then when he say Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, he say also Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, and so on. So it's mustahab to repeat when muadhin is reciting the Adhan. Issue 937, if a person hears another person pronouncing Adhan and Iqamah, regardless of whether he has repeated with him the same or not, he may not say Adhan and Iqamah for his own prayer if there is no delay or time gap between them and his prayer. No, this is not a case of Jama'at prayer, but I am in a mosque and someone is offering his prayer, he recited Adhan and recited Iqamah, and I heard him, and I want to pray my own prayer. Because it is already said, I can pray my prayer if there is no too much time lapse. It is okay, 1-2 minutes, fine. But if after half an hour I want to pray, then there is too much gap, and I may recite Adhan and Iqamah again. Issue 938, if a man listens to the Adhan pronounced by a woman with lustful amusement, he will not be exempted from pronouncing Adhan. In fact, even if intention is not lustful, the exemption is a matter of ishkal. Well, that is why usually they said when the women recite Adhan, it should be in a mosque with only women to be there, not men to be there, because naturally their sound is beautiful and might affect others. Issue 939, it is necessary that the Adhan and Iqamah of a congregational prayers are pronounced by a man. However, if a woman pronounces Adhan and Iqamah in a congregational prayers of women, it is sufficient. So if it's only women are offering prayer, it is sufficient for a woman. But if men are offering prayer, a man should recite Adhan and Iqamah. Issue 940, Iqamah should be pronounced after Adhan. Moreover, Iqamah should be pronounced in a standing position and with wudu, ghusl or tayammum. Adhan, even if somebody is sitting, he can recite Adhan, but he say Iqamah should be at a standing position. And for Adhan, may recite Adhan and go and perform wudu and come back. But if he recite Iqamah, he should be already on wudu, or if he need to have ghusl or tayammum, he should already perform that. Issue 941, if a person pronouncing the sentences of Adhan or Iqamah without proper order, like if he says Hayya ala al-falah before Hayya ala al-salah, he should repeat from the place where the order has been disturbed. Well, some people sometimes miss the order, or they have not learned it properly. So if they miss the order, they should return back and repeat it from the same order which it should be there. Issue 942, an inordinate lapse of time should not be allowed between Adhan and Iqamah. And if an excessive gap is allowed between them, it is mustahab that Adhan be pronounced once again. Similarly, if an excessive time gap is allowed between Adhan, Iqamah and the prayers, it is mustahab to repeat them for that prayers. As it was said before, that it should be one after the other, not too much time, too much gap. Otherwise, it's better to be repeated. Issue 943, Adhan and Iqamah should be pronounced in correct Arabic. Hence, if they are pronounced in incorrect Arabic, or one letter is uttered for another, or if, for example, its translation is pronounced, it will not be valid. Well, there is a stress that it should be in a proper Arabic language. Issue 944, Adhan and Iqamah for a prayer should be pronounced when the time for the prayer has set in. If a person pronouncing them before time, whether it be intentionally or due to forgetfulness, his action is void, except when the time of prayer sets in during the prayer being offered. Then that is valid as explained in Rule 752. So you see, if somebody 10 minutes before prayer time he recite Adhan, you see it is outside the prayer time. So it is when, let us say, Dhuhr start, Adhan should be at that time. Issue 945, if a person doubts before pronouncing Iqamah whether he has pronounced Adhan, he should pronounce Adhan. But if he doubts during Iqamah whether he has pronounced Adhan, the pronouncing of Adhan is not necessary. He said if before he start Iqamah he doubt, then because he did not start a new act, he has to make sure he performed Adhan. But if he at the middle of Iqamah, he doubt whether Adhan was pronounced or not, already he passed the time for Adhan because he is inside Iqamah, so he doesn't need to recite Adhan. Issue 947, it is mustahab that while pronouncing Adhan, a person should stand facing Qibla and should have performed wudu or ghusl. So for Adhan, it is mustahab to be standing and to be with taharat, proper taharat. It is mustahab to place the hands on his ears and raise one's voice. Also, one should pause between the recitals of different sentences and should not engage in talking during Adhan. You see here mentions mustahab to stand, to be facing Qibla, and to put his hands in his ears, when he recite Adhan, So that is to be there. And when he recite, not quickly, Allahu Akbar, quickly, no. He say Allahu Akbar, and then there is a gap. Then Allahu Akbar, again there is a gap. So you keep sentences one after the other, and he mustahab also to raise his voice. Actually, it is said his thawab will be more as long as his voice will reach, So if his voice will reach more area, he will get more thawab. That is about Adhan to be recited. Now we will mention about Iqamah. Issue 948, it is mustahab that at the time of pronouncing Iqamah, a person is at ease and he pronounces it with a lower voice, while it is mustahab not to join the sentences of Iqamah. There should not be that gap between them, which is normally given in Adhan. So the sentences not together, but not to wait. So he should to say quickly, and his voice may not be raised loud like in Adhan. So you may say Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. Say no gap, a quick no gap, but each sentence is one by one, not together. Issue 949, it is mustahab that between the adhan and iqamah, a man should take a step forward or should sit down for a while or perform sajda or recite any dhikr or dua or become quiet for some time or talk or offer 2 rak'ats of prayers. However, talking between the adhan and iqamah of fajr prayer or offering prayers between the adhan and iqamah of maghrib prayers is not mustahab. You see there, mustahab, what he said, is a gap between adhan and iqamah. That gap is filled by what? Sometimes they step one step ahead and then come back. Or he recite any dua. Dua between adhan and iqamah, that is one of the good times for dua. And dua is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala between adhan and iqamah, because one of the good times for dua is between adhan and iqamah. Or he may sit down and then stand again. Or he may go for sajda, say shukrullah, for example, and then sit and then stand for iqamah. So he said there should be a gap between adhan and iqamah in that way. Sometimes he pray 2 rak'at, let's say nafila. He has adhan, he pray 2 rak'at nafila of dhuhr, for example. It is before dhuhr, and then he pray dhuhr. Issue 950, it is recommended that a person who is appointed to pronounce adhan is a righteous person, adil, and the knowledge of timings, and his voice is loud. He should pronounce adhan from an elevated place. So these are recommended things. If somebody recite adhan, he should not be a bad person. It is better that he should be good man, adil, because he is calling people for adhan. So if he is pious, naturally his voice will affect people. Also, if he can stand in a high place, like in mosque there are minarets, and from the minaret he may recite the adhan. Also, he should know the timing, because other people are depending on him, so he's responsible of the timing. If he recites adhan before time and the people offer their prayer, or if they are fasting, they break their fast, so naturally he is responsible. So he is supposed to know the timing and be exact and look to his watch and make sure that his watch is correct, or look to the sky if it is maghrib to make sure that maghrib has been set. So all that is his responsibility. I think that is sufficient up to here. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi al-tahirin.